What up, book lovers? It is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to talk about the hardest and heaviest books I've had to read so far. So this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I am the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out, and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. And I swear, I did not go into this topic with the right mood, meaning that just a minute before I switched the camera on, I was belting out the Pokemon theme song. So I'm actually in a pretty happy mood, but discussing this topic might just make my day feel a little bit heavier. So I was inspired to add this to the list of 7 on Sunday topics because I recently read a book last month where I did have one of those really heavy, thought-provoking moments. I was reading a book that was harder to read than I anticipated. And considering that that reading experience that I had last month, as I'm filming this right now, was fairly recent, I figured that this might be the perfect time to do the 7 on Sunday topic. And hopefully, fingers crossed, this video doesn't come off as heavy itself. I just want to kind of talk about these heavy experiences while being a little bit lighthearted, if I possibly can, but we will see how we go. Because some of these I haven't had a good rant or cry about in quite some time. At this point, I cannot predict the direction that this video is going to head in. But I guess without further ado, let's get straight into talking about these reading experiences, and I will discuss why I found these books pretty hard and heavy to read. First off, I'm going to mention the book that inspired this topic, and that, my friends, is The Power by Naomi Alderman. Now, I was given multiple trigger warnings for The Power. However, I did not put myself in that headspace. I did not mentally prepare myself for what I was getting into. I read The Power, and it was much heavier than I anticipated. This was really hard to read, and I think on the day that I read it, Camilo was asking me how my day was, and I was just in shock, and it was really hard for me to articulate what happened in this book and why it pretty much traumatized me, but I tried my best. If you guys are wondering whether or not I will be watching the show, no. This book experience was a lot for me. I think that the adaptation might just do well. I don't know if it's good or not. I haven't actually seen reviews about The Power. I initially wanted to watch it after reading the book, but I cannot bring myself to watch the show if it is anything like the book or if it's just as heavy. If there are scenes that are from the book that were just like a lot to handle, like the more extreme scenes, I don't want to visualize them any further. I think that picturing them in my head was hard enough. I personally cannot bring myself to watch what happened in this book through an adaptation, and I don't know whether or not I will reread this in the future. I mean, maybe I might. I might be somewhat desensitized to it by the time that I decide to reread this book. I think that The Power is somewhat of an important read. However, I do believe that there were some themes that could have been explored in The Power. So yes, I would criticize it for that reason, but I think that it was a pretty important read overall. It definitely stuck with me, let's just say that. One of the next hardest and heaviest reading experiences I had was when I read Guild by Raven Kennedy. Not many readers know this going into the book, but I am just gonna warn you right now. This book is more like a prequel backstory, kind of like a tragic backstory of our protagonist, Oren. I believe that the book series will pick up from book 2, where we actually have more plot, but Guild itself was really hard to read, and it was really disturbing. And I think what disturbed me even more about this book was how Oren thought that King Midas deserved everything. The fact that she admired him so much. The fact that she was gaslit and manipulated by him, and she pretty much put up with it all. I really feel sorry for all the side characters that had to experience what they experienced in this book. This society in this world is unfair and cruel to women. But honestly, overall, it was really difficult to read from Oren's perspective because she put King Midas on a pedestal and he's terrible. And then there were some other experiences that happened throughout the book. Some people did not deserve what they got. It was just tragic to see overall. I'm kind of sad that this was the first book because it just didn't put the right taste in my mouth. Now, that all being said, I did want to continue. I just did not want to be put on a massive cliffhanger because I just wanted to get to the point where Oren would experience happiness after what she's gone through. Because at the time I started reading Guild, Gleam only just came out, and I was trying to work out whether or not this was going to be a 4 or a 5 book series, and turns out it was a 5 book series. series, so I have been holding off. But what I do know is that this reading experience was so heavy for me, I don't want to experience this book again. I have everything clear in my memory. At this point of time, I remember everything that happened in this book, and I read it 2 years ago. I don't think I'm gonna reread Guild because it's just too heavy and I don't want to put myself through it again. But I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with the series because I believe that it's only gonna get better from here. And the next of the hardest reading experiences that I've ever had is of this book right here. I don't need to explain this one that much. Yes, I have previously mentioned the time and place I previously was at when I was reading this book. I did not have a supportive family member in the room with me when I had experienced what was going on. Overall, I'm pretty sad about how things went down because it just felt really lonely knowing that I had grown so attached to a character only for that to be their fate. That really broke my heart. I understand why it happened and I understand that it was in character for this character, so that's why I can't fully be angry and bitter about it. I think I'm just more upset at the fact that I didn't really have proper emotional support at the time that I had to experience this. This was one of the hardest reading experiences I've ever been through. It was definitely the first of the hardest reading experiences I've gone through. I had been sad for days. I sometimes just want to put it behind me, but I just remember the day so clearly. I just remember how everything went down. I will forever grieve the way that 18-year-old Geese was grieved. But in a way, I am super thankful that this series was there for me at the time. And funnily enough, the next hard reading experience I've gone through that I want to mention today has pretty much nothing to do with the hardship that the characters experienced in those other books that I've mentioned. This book was really hard to read because I could understand that every character in this book was in some sort of pain to do with love and relationships and having to rebuild trust. And guys, that is my favorite book by Katie Roberts, The Beast. So this is a Beauty and the Beast reimagining, and in my personal opinion, it is one of the best that I've read so far. It pretty much centers a love triangle between Belle, the Beast, and Gaston. Belle is in love with both of them, and it's tragic. It's really hard to see because you can tell how much she loves and she cares about both of them. However, the Beast and Gaston characters are angry about that, obviously, because they want Belle to themselves. They love Belle, they adore her, and they're so heartbroken by this. But their hate for each other also becomes an infatuation for each other over time. And everyone in the story is tragically falling in love with each other and has no idea what to do. And it's just interesting because each of them feel like they have betrayed one another. However, they cannot help but feel the way that they feel about each other. And reading this was very interesting because I don't think I've ever experienced this. I don't know if I've ever loved two people romantically at the same time. But reading this and experiencing this from their perspectives was really tough. I wanted them to work things out so bad. I was frustrated. I was crying a lot because it felt heartbreaking. Experiencing what they were going through felt heartbreaking. And that is why I have to thank Katie Robert for the way that she wrote it. I was truly heartbroken for this trio, and I also kind of appreciated that they eventually accepted that they loved and they truly cared for one another, because I think they all deserve happiness. I am so happy that they were ready to let go of their resentment and their pain, because I could see that weighing them down at the very beginning of the book. It was so difficult to read. Guys, this is an erotic novel, and usually you just read them for spicy fun times. This was heavy. This was a lot for me. I still think about how heavy this book was to this day. It's definitely my favorite book by Katie Roberts, but I can't return back to it so easily because of how heavy it was to experience the first time. I know it will get easier as I go along, as I experience it again, but just seeing how long it took for them to kind of forgive each other and to work things out between each other, that was really painful. I cried a lot during this reading experience, but it taught me so much, and I just love them. This is definitely one of my favorite Beauty and the Beast reimaginings, and I definitely recommend it if you can handle Katie Roberts' writing. And the next hard and heavy reading experience that I would like to mention today is the hard and heavy reading experience I had with It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I have talked about this previously. I actually read this for the very first time last year. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this brief. It Ends With Us opened my eyes up to the fact that I was in an abusive and manipulative relationship with someone who I had been close to almost my entire life, and I had to end things for good. I don't want to go too much deeper into it. It was just very hard for me to read, and I think what's even more triggering is when people go on to the internet and they start fan casting, or they start talking about how the relationship between the protagonist and not Atlas, the other guy, was kind of like dreamlike and cute, and they glorify that part. It's really hard to see that go around. However, at the end of the day, fandom culture will be fandom culture. It will always go that way. But what I am personally thankful for out of this reading experience was how it opened my eyes. If I did not read this book, I would not know for certain how to end things and how to move on with my life. I'm still healing from the experience. I still have a lot of healing to go, but I'm really thankful that this book opened my eyes to it, and I know It Ends With Us has done some harm. I understand that, and I know that not everyone is fully prepared going into it. I've seen 9-year-olds pick this book up thanks to Book Talk, and I don't think that that is good whatsoever. That all being said, I do still believe that this book has done some good based on what it did for me. And the next out of the hardest and heavy books I have read, this one I've read this year. It's probably the hardest book I've read in the series. It's a 6-book series, and this series actually deals with pretty heavy topics. I was going to include book 1, but I decided to include book 5 because we do not just experience one character's backstory, we are also reliving the main character's backstory in book 5 as well. Tragic Bonds by J. Bree. This is the 5th book in the Bonds That Tie series, and it's not a series that I recommend to everyone. A lot of the series is very much guilty pleasure, fan service. It's a Why Choose series with 5 guys, so there's that. There are times where it's really hot, but here in this story we follow Knox for a bit more time, and we experience what he went through, and oh my goodness. I'm gonna try to keep this light. It was a really hard reading experience. Does it completely justify what happened in book 1? No, it doesn't. I think that what happened in book 1 still was unacceptable. However, I cannot help but feel empathy for his situation, and I personally don't think that any child should go through what he went through in his past, because you can see that it really did mess him up, you know? I do feel sorry for Knox. I don't believe that he deserved to go through what he went through, but also this book very much reminded me about how strong Ollie was, and I was just really happy to see her grow throughout the series, but just being reminded as to like what Ollie went through and how tough that was. Like, oh my goodness, she's so strong, she's so brave. I love Ollie. She's probably one of my favorite characters I've read about this year. But yeah, this reading experience was tough because we not only finally got to see what was up with Knox, but also we had to relive Ollie's trauma as well. I just appreciate these characters. I really did enjoy this reading experience overall. I actually devoured these books within 3 days, and it's a 6-book series, and these books are like pretty chunky. And the final 3 hardest reading experiences that I have to mention today have a similarity to each other. They have something in common, and that, my friends, is memory loss. And the thing is, memory loss never used to trigger me until I got into a relationship. Until I actually fell in love. And funnily enough, all 3 of these have to do with memory loss within relationships or interactions, and yeah, all 3 of them were really difficult for me to read, and I had experienced all 3 of them either during my marriage or being in a relationship with Camilo. First off, I would like to mention how hard it was reading Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin, not just because I had binge read the first 2 books in the lead up to this finale, but when I finally got to this finale and when the memory loss trope kicked in, I was sobbing. I was in tears, and I just thought of how much of a nightmare it would be for myself or my husband to experience this within our partnership and to see the other as a threat. That just broke my heart so much. Like, just thinking about this makes me tear up. I want to revisit the series, I want to reread it, but this final book in the series is really hard to read based on the trial that Reed and Lou are put through. I don't want to spoil this book, so I'm not going to proceed talking about it, but this book was really hard and it made me hug Camilo a lot tighter. And then, of course, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This was tough throughout the whole reading experience because Addie would form attachments with people, but she is cursed with people not remembering who she is once they stop looking at her or once they stop talking to her, and it is just so heartbreaking to see that that is her reality. And I hated Luke so much because he made that her reality and he never took that away from her. It frustrated me, and that's why I loved and I appreciated Henry Henry, but knowing that she had formed attachments to other people other than Henry, and knowing that she could not pursue any further relationships with anyone else just made me feel so sad and so sorry for her. And it made me think to myself, what if that were myself or my husband? What if every single time he looked at me, he did not remember me? Or what if the times when we were getting to know each other, he would never remember our interactions? That would be so devastating. There's just something important about keeping memories and having those experiences with people that you can share. For some reason, that is something that I definitely value, and I think that books like The Invisible Life of LaRue make me value them even more. And then the manga series that Camilo encouraged me to read right before we got into a relationship. One of the hardest reading experiences I've ever had to encounter in my life was reading the Golden Age arc of Berserk. If you know, you know. Guts and Casca's story is heartbreaking. I still recommend this manga series to absolutely everyone. I am pushing people to read Berserk because Berserk is a work of art, and it is so beautiful regardless of it being tragic. The Golden Age arc is my favorite part of Berserk because we get to know these young characters and we think that we are on a journey with them throughout the rest of the story, but it is really sad to find out that some of them are robbed of that opportunity. And I do like that we follow new characters as Berserk goes on, but I found myself really attached to Casca in the Golden Age arc. Casca is probably like my favorite character in the series beside Guts. Like, I love Guts, I love Casca, and just knowing the things that happen in the Golden Age arc, yeah, it just it devastates me. This story will forever make me shed a tear. I find it really hard to read Berserk chapter by chapter because every single time I read a new chapter of Berserk, I start to well up with tears. It is a very hard story to continue at the moment, especially where the story has left off and where the manga team are picking it up from, but at the end of the day, it's worth it. This is an ongoing difficult experience for me, but I don't think it could be as difficult as it was reading the Golden Age arc, unless we are talking about one of the most recent chapters where Guts is in shock. Let's just say that. I think we were all in shock. That was a really hard chapter. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the flower bouquet emoji. Flowers make everyone happy, and I think that this was a very heavy video, so let's leave on that note. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social media. @GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at @GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
How did I weigh half and I flipped it in a double? How did I weigh half and I flipped it in a double?